Hi, I'm Gareth. Now, when people are starting their careers, I think a lot of people have high hopes, high ambitions for what they can achieve. Perhaps they can end up living in a nice big house, driving a nice car, or maybe take exotic holidays to far-flung locations. And a lot of people still assume that if they want to achieve those sorts of things, they're going to have to go to university. But I've read a few statistics over the last few days that I thought I'd pull together, because I think they paint quite a powerful story that university isn't necessarily going to be the best option for everybody. Statistic number 1. Some research undertaken by City and Guilds identified that currently 70% of teenagers are planning to go to university. Statistic number 2. The Institute of Fiscal Studies recently identified that a graduate leaving university after a typical 3-year degree programme owes on average a total of £57,000. Now, you might be aware they won't start repaying that debt until after they earn more than £21,000, but what you've got to remember is that they'll still be incurring interest on their debt, and in fact the interest rates at the moment are just over 6%. That's pretty high. And so even before the graduate starts repaying their debt, they're going to see that £57,000 increasing year on year. And even when they do earn the £21,000, let's say they're at a relatively low level of £25,000 or £30,000 salary, the value of the repayments being made will actually be less than the extra interest that's being added every year. So the debt will still be rising. In fact, the tipping point, here's statistic number 3, the tipping point at which the level of repayments will be greater than the extra interest is at £48,000. So it's only when a graduate is earning £48,000 or more that the level of debt is going to start falling. Statistic number 4. In an LEO study, the new starting salary for an average graduate is currently £25,000. And in fact, even for a graduate 10 years after leaving university, it's still only £31,000, which is well short of that £48,000 tipping point at which the level of student debt would be falling. And this means a lot of graduates are going to be saddled with that debt until they're well into their 50s. And in fact, they reckon that 3/4 of graduates won't be able to repay their debt at all, which I think says an awful lot about the earning power of graduates and the value of degrees. Well, a final statistic I will leave you with, again from City and Guilds. Only 30% of jobs are forecast to require a degree. And if we tie that back to the very first statistic we saw, that 70% of teenagers are going to go to university, but only 30% of jobs are going to require a degree, I think there's going to be an awful lot of people suffering huge amounts of cost and incurring large amounts of debt that will saddle them potentially for decades of their life to earn a qualification that really isn't going to help them in the workplace. Now, if you contrast that against some of the school leavers that I've taught in recent years, they come into a qualification perhaps like AAT, sometimes even before their 18th birthday. They achieve that first accountancy qualification by the time they're 19. That they use as a springboard then into one of the higher level professional qualifications like ICAW, ACCA or CIMA. They achieve that by the time they're 22, which puts them a good couple of years ahead of a typical graduate. They've got a lot more workplace experience, 2 qualifications under their belt, and crucially, no debt